There comes a moment when the chaos no longer defines you, when the pain that once felt like home becomes foreign, when you realize you're not broken, you're breaking through. This is the sacred sign. You're healing. But not just healing, you're integrating. Healing through integration isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming whole. It's when your mind, your body, and your spirit finally begin to speak the same language, the language of coherence, the language of truth. There comes a moment in your journey when you notice something subtle yet profound. You're in the same environment, around the same people, maybe even revisiting an old pattern or memory, but this time something is different. You feel it in your body first. You don't contract. Your breath stays steady. Your heart doesn't race the way it used to. You're not swept away by emotion or paralyzed by fear, and that's when it hits you. You didn't react the way you used to. This is not just behavior modification. It's not about suppressing what you feel or pretending to be calm. This is the unmistakable sign that healing is happening at the deepest levels of your being. You're integrating. You're no longer unconsciously tethered to the emotional energy of the past. And because of that, the emotional charge that used to hijack your system is dissolving. You see, for most of our lives, we've lived in a state of unconscious reaction. Something outside of us, a word, a look, a situation would trigger a flood of chemicals, and before we could even think clearly, our body was already in survival. Our nervous system was bracing for impact. Our mind was racing to interpret, defend, escape. The same loop, again and again, and we called it normal. But that wasn't living. That was memorized suffering. Now imagine this: every time you return to that old trigger, but choose to observe instead of react, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching your body a new way to be. You're showing yourself that safety doesn't exist outside of you, it begins within. And when you can stay conscious in the face of what used to make you unconscious, you reclaim your power. This is the moment when your biology begins to match your intention. You're no longer the victim of your past experiences. You are the creator of your future responses. You've stepped out of the program and into presence. That is not small work. That is the true revolution of healing. Because let's be honest, triggers are not enemies. They are portals. They show you where your energy is still trapped. They reveal where the pain lives, where the belief was formed, where the body still remembers. When you meet a trigger with awareness instead of resistance, you create a gap, and in that gap, choice is born. In that space, you have the opportunity to choose a new future instead of recycling the past. You're not reacting because the emotional residue is no longer there, or if it's still present, it's beginning to lose its intensity. Your body is no longer addicted to the chemistry of that emotion. The neurons that once fired in tight, automatic patterns are loosening. The memories that once felt like chains are losing their weight. You're shifting the signal you send into the quantum field, and reality begins to reflect that. This is not theory. This is neuroplasticity. This is epigenetics. This is transformation at the level of identity. You are literally becoming someone new, not by force but by awareness. You are interrupting the pattern. You are dissolving the story. You are transcending the past, not by denying it but by finally facing it with eyes open and heart present. Think about how many years you spent reacting from the same wound, the same scarcity, the same unhealed belief that you weren't enough, that you had to prove something, that love had to be earned through pain. And now, here you are, choosing peace, choosing silence, choosing not to fight what used to ignite you. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to see the illusion. Every time you do this, you reclaim a piece of your energy that was trapped in time. You call back the fragments of yourself that were frozen in emotional memory, and slowly the self that was scattered by trauma begins to reunify. Integration is not just healing the pain, it is becoming whole again. It is remembering who you were before the world taught you to protect, defend, hide, or attack. So the next time life tries to provoke the old version of you, pause, breathe, witness. Let the wave rise and pass without clinging to it. This isn't about perfection, this is about awareness. And every time you remain conscious when it would be easier to collapse, you strengthen the bridge to your future self. You are not the person you were when that pain began. You are the observer now. You are the healer. You are the one who can witness the storm and not become it. That's not weakness. That is emotional mastery. That is the embodiment of healing. And it is the evidence that the past no longer has authority over your future. And in that space, in that sacred pause between stimulus and response, a miracle is happening. You are no longer the echo of your past. You are the signal of your transformation. There's a quiet shift that takes place when you begin to heal through integration. And for many, it arrives in the most subtle of ways. You're washing the dishes, walking through the park, sitting in a conversation with someone you love, and suddenly you realize you are fully here. Your thoughts aren't racing toward the future or stuck in loops from the past. You're simply present, fully alive, engaged with life, not lost in your mind. That presence is not just a sign of healing, it's a sign that your nervous system is no longer living in survival. For years, we were trained to live outside the present moment. The subconscious programs we inherited, the emotions we memorized, the past traumas we never fully processed, they all kept pulling us away from now. Our bodies lived in the past, while our minds tried to predict the future. And in that tug of war, we lost access to life as it's happening. But the moment you become present, truly present, you're no longer a prisoner of time. You are free. This doesn't happen by accident. The body is a living memory of everything we've ever experienced. It remembers the heartbreak, the loss, the fear, the betrayal. And unless we bring conscious awareness to those experiences, the body will continue to live as if the event is still happening. That's why so many people walk through life in a state of low-grade anxiety, irritability, or numbness. Their body is waiting for the next threat. It's trapped in a biochemical pattern created by the past. But healing through integration teaches the body something new. Every time you sit with yourself, every time you choose to breathe instead of run, every time you allow the uncomfortable emotion to surface without judging or reacting to it, you're teaching your body that it's safe to be here. You're reconditioning your nervous system to associate presence with peace instead of danger. And as this happens, the mind begins to settle. The loop of obsessive thinking slows down. The need to control outcomes starts to dissolve. You're no longer constantly trying to plan, fix, or defend. You start to trust the moment. You realize that everything you need is found here. Not in some imagined future, not in some distant goal, but in this breath, this heartbeat, this sacred now. There is immense intelligence in the present moment. It's where inspiration arises. It's where healing takes place. It's where your intuition speaks. When you're fully present, your brain shifts out of the beta brainwave pattern associated with survival and into alpha and theta states. Those same brain states connected to creativity, flow, and self-repair. Your heart rate balances. Your cortisol levels drop. Your immune system strengthens. Presence is not just spiritual, it is physiological. You may notice this when you start to find beauty in what used to feel ordinary. The way sunlight filters through the trees, the sound of your child laughing, the stillness of an early morning. These moments used to pass you by unnoticed, buried beneath the noise of thought. But now they land. They fill you. You begin to experience life in high definition. And the most amazing part, nothing outside you changed. You changed. Presence also transforms how you relate to others. When you're not preoccupied with proving yourself or defending your past, you can actually listen. You can feel what the other person is saying, not just with your ears but with your whole being. You're no longer projecting old stories onto new experiences. You're seeing things as they are, not as you fear them to be. That clarity opens the door to authentic connection. This is when relationships begin to shift. Some deepen, some fall away. Not because you're forcing anything, but because the energy has changed. When you're present, you're not seeking anything from others to fill a void. You're not attached to old dynamics rooted in your unhealed self. You begin to draw people and experiences that resonate with the version of you that's no longer addicted to suffering. And then there are the moments when presence becomes your sanctuary. When life gets loud, when challenges arise, when old emotions start to resurface, you no longer get swept away by them. You return to presence like a sacred anchor. You breathe, you observe, you stay, and in that staying, the storm passes through without destroying you. That's the kind of resilience that can't be faked. It's earned, it's lived, it's integrated. You start to realize that the goal is not to be happy all the time. The goal is to be awake, to meet whatever arises without abandoning yourself. Because in the present moment, you are always enough. You are never lacking. You are never broken. You are whole, just as you are. The more you embody that truth, the more life begins to respond in kind. Opportunities show up. Synchronicities unfold. You start living in flow, not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer resisting what is. Presence isn't something you find outside of yourself. It's who you are when you stop being who you're not. And as you continue to integrate, you stop chasing peace and start living it. Not in some distant future, but right here, right now. This moment becomes the portal. This breath becomes the medicine. This awareness becomes your freedom. There's something almost magical that begins to unfold when you're deep in the process of inner transformation. At first, it's subtle. You wake up one day and notice that the weight you used to carry in your chest is lighter. You enter a room and no longer feel the urge to shrink or perform. The same job, the same house, the same people. But the energy feels different. It's not because the world has changed. It's because you have, and when your inner world changes, the outer world can't help but reflect it. For most of our lives, we've believed that change happens from the outside in, that if we work harder, achieve more, fix everything around us, then maybe we'll feel peace on the inside. But what if it's the other way around? What if the world responds to who you're being, not what you're doing? When you begin to shift your energy, when you start thinking differently, feeling differently, acting differently, you alter the signal you send out into the field. And the field, by its very nature, mirrors back your new state of being. This is the foundation of energetic alignment. You're not chasing opportunities anymore. You're aligning with them. You're not trying to manipulate circumstances. You're magnetizing outcomes that match your vibration. You're not forcing connection. You're attracting people who meet you where you truly are. That's not luck. That's coherence. Every thought you think, every emotion you embody, broadcasts a frequency. When your thoughts and emotions are stuck in fear, resentment, or lack, you emit a signal that matches those states, and the quantum field organizes itself to meet that signal. You end up experiencing the same patterns again and again because you're living from the same energy. But the moment you start to heal, the moment you begin to elevate your emotional state and align your thoughts with possibility, with gratitude, with the future you're creating, the signal changes, and the field responds in kind. At first it might show up in small ways. A conversation you've been avoiding happens with unexpected ease. Someone gives you a compliment that speaks directly to the part of you that has just begun to believe it. An opportunity lands in your lap that you didn't plan for but somehow feels perfectly aligned. These are not random events, they are feedback from the field. They are evidence that your inner world is no longer in conflict with your desires. They are signs that your healing is not only real, it's rippling outward. The most profound part of this shift is that you stop needing proof before you believe. You no longer say, "I'll feel worthy when I succeed." You start to feel worthy now, and success begins to show up. You don't wait for love to arrive in order to feel whole. You feel whole now, and love begins to find you. This is the turning point. You stop reacting to reality and begin to create it. We've all been conditioned to think that our past defines our future, that because something didn't work before, it won't work now. But healing through integration dissolves that belief, because you're no longer the person you were when those old patterns were formed. You've gone into the darkness, you've felt it, held it, loved it, and through that process you've become someone new. Someone who no longer sees life through the lens of pain, but through the possibility of what could be. When this shift happens, you become more conscious of the environments you allow into your life. You feel when something is no longer aligned, not because it's wrong, but because your energy no longer resonates with it. And that's not judgment, it's discernment. The friends you used to vent with may no longer understand the peace you've cultivated. The roles you used to play might feel tight on your skin. That's okay, that's part of the evolution. As your frequency rises, your life reorganizes around it. The reality is, you cannot bring the new you into an old story and expect it to fit. The external must catch up to the internal. And often that requires letting go of identities, attachments, even relationships that were built around the version of you that was still wounded. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because you're no longer willing to abandon your truth to maintain familiarity. There's a beauty in watching your life begin to mirror the love, clarity, and wholeness you've cultivated within. It validates your inner work in ways that words never could. When a relationship improves, when the career opens up, when your health starts to shift, these are not coincidences. They are reflections of coherence. They are the evidence that your inner alignment is reshaping matter. And still, the greatest reward isn't the manifestation. It's the knowing. The deep, unshakable knowing that you are no longer at the mercy of circumstances, that you are no longer trapped in cycles, that you are no longer repeating history. You are creating from the present moment, empowered, awake, and connected to something greater. And that frequency, that new way of being, has the power to call in a future far greater than your past could ever predict. There comes a point in your healing journey when something extraordinary begins to unfold within you. You start choosing peace over proving a point. You choose silence over drama. You choose stillness over chaos, and authenticity over approval. And it's not because you've given up or lost your fire. No, it's because you've finally remembered who you are. You've stopped needing to convince the world of your worth because deep down you've made peace with yourself. That is one of the clearest signs of true integration. When you no longer need the outer world to validate your inner state, you've stepped into emotional sovereignty. For most of our lives, we've been trained to live for the reactions of others. We learned to perform for love, to shrink for acceptance, to fight for recognition. Our sense of self was shaped by the reflections we saw in the eyes of those around us. But what happens when you realize that the mirror was distorted, that the image you were reacting to was never the truth of who you are. Healing means learning to see clearly again. And when you do, the need to prove yourself simply dissolves. You realize you don't have to respond to every insult, defend every choice, or explain every emotion. You stop fighting battles that no longer serve you. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, not out of arrogance or apathy, but out of clarity, because you understand that not every storm deserves your energy. Not every trigger is an invitation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away with your peace intact. This isn't weakness, this is mastery. It takes strength to sit with your truth in silence, to allow others their projections without taking them on as your own. It takes courage to no longer be pulled into emotional quicksand just because someone else hasn't done the work. That is how you know you're healing. When you're no longer swayed by every external wave, when your inner calm is no longer conditional, that's when you know integration is taking place. You begin to notice how different your energy feels. You're not operating from a space of lack or fear or neediness. You don't seek out validation like you used to. You don't chase situations or people to make you feel whole. You've come back home to yourself. And from that place, your decisions are no longer based on fear, but on alignment. You ask yourself, does this feel true to who I am becoming? And if it doesn't, you release it without guilt. There's a profound emotional maturity that begins to emerge in this space. You stop blaming. You stop shaming. You stop needing to be right. Instead, you focus on being real. You own your wounds without making them your identity. You hold compassion for those still lost in their pain, but you no longer allow their chaos to become your reality. You're learning to love from a distance when necessary. You're learning to set boundaries without burning bridges. That is wisdom born from healing. You find yourself no longer craving the highs and lows of emotional drama. You're not addicted to intensity. You've outgrown the roller coaster, because what used to excite you now feels exhausting, and what used to bore you, like peace, quiet, consistency, now feels like sacred ground. That shift is no accident. It's the result of integration. Your nervous system is no longer addicted to cortisol spikes. Your body isn't bracing for the next blow. Your heart isn't scanning for betrayal. You're not rehearsing old survival patterns. You're simply here, present, awake, whole. And in that wholeness, your relationships begin to transform. You stop playing the role you used to play. You're no longer the fixer, the pleaser, the one who bends just to keep the peace. You've realized that peace without authenticity isn't peace at all. So you begin to speak more truthfully. You say what you mean. You honor your no as much as your yes. And in doing so, you attract relationships that mirror your healing instead of your wounding. This level of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It comes from choosing again and again to return to presence. It comes from catching yourself when you slip into the old pattern, and gently guiding yourself back without judgment. It comes from choosing not to abandon yourself, even when it's hard. That's how you build self-trust. That's how you reclaim your power. Not by being perfect, but by staying present and choosing alignment over habit. There will be moments when the old version of you tries to come back. Moments when you're tempted to react, to explain, to defend. That's okay. Integration isn't about never feeling triggered. It's about no longer letting the trigger control your behavior. It's about creating space between the stimulus and the response, and choosing who you want to be in that space. And when you consistently choose peace, not as a performance but as a way of being, life starts to reflect that back to you. You notice more ease, more synchronicities, more flow, because the universe responds not to what you say you want, but to who you're being. And when who you're being is grounded, whole and at peace, life cannot help but meet you there. So if you've been wondering, am I really healing? Look at how you feel, not just what you think. Look at how you respond, not just what you say. Look at the peace that no one sees, but you now live. You are not returning to who you once were. You are rising into who you were always meant to be. This is your season of becoming. This is your time of integration. And the universe is listening.